So my name is Andy. I'm the technical evangelist for Status, which means that I sort of am involved in making sure that third-party developers who are wanting to build mobile-first DApps that are completely decentralized can actually utilize Status, which is, you can imagine it as the WeChat of Ethereum, right? We're building a mobile window onto this network in such a way that we can sort of allow people as expansive a view as possible of what's really going on in these decentralized worlds.
That's pretty ambitious. So, I lived in China. I used WeChat for, once again, everything. So what are some specific examples of things someone can do with your app?
So, very basically, the sort of core functionality is making sure that we can do completely peer-to-peer, dark-rooted and plausibly deniable messaging, right? This is really important for sort of freedom of speech and liberty, right? And having lived in China, you'll understand that this is a very, very important thing across the world, right? But more than that, freedom of speech extends beyond just being able to message who you want and say what you want and express the sort of ideas that you find applicable. It's really about being able to sign contracts, about being able to send transactions, about being able to interact with any kind of service that's out there that you desire to. So it's really about making sure that not only can you sort of message your mates, but also there's a wallet built in, there's the ability to browse to any DApp that exists on Ethereum and interact with it without any sort of passwords, without the possibility of getting man in the middle, without any complicated login functionality. The keys are on your device, you're controlling it yourself, and you really do have the power of these decentralized networks in your pockets, which is really pretty neat. And then beyond that, we're all about enabling third-party developers to extend what we've built, right? So it's all completely open source. You can find our GitHub repos, and the main idea here is guys, for instance, like the Foam network, who are building this decentralized proof of location, right? And the sort of smart contract standards for being able to prove this stuff not using GPS, which is spoofable. For instance, they'll extend Status with a discovery protocol that is about making sure that you can find peers that are providing services or products near you in these decentralized networks that you can interface with directly without requiring any intermediary or middleman. And it's about conversational commerce on steroids.
That's interesting. So it sounds like you have three different groups that you really have to evangelize with. You have the end users, you have the partners, and then you also have the businesses who might accept payment, for example.
Yeah.
So how do you reach all of these groups to create an actual network?
With difficulty, I think, is the answer to that, in honesty. But it's about different strokes for different folks, right? So in terms of the end users, who really are our main focus, right? We're about the 99%, not the 1%, and making sure that Ethereum can be used by the mainstream. So when I talk about freedom of speech and using decentralized architectures and networks to enable that, that's really our core focus. And the way to do that is to build an incredibly slick, intuitive, easy-to-use product that doesn't scare people. There's no crazy hex strings that are displayed to the end user. It's presented as an instant messenger. People are familiar with that format. They know what it's about. They know how to use it, and then they can fall sort of further down the rabbit hole as they explore the wallets in your profile and see some of the other kind of Ethereum-specific stuff.
So the easier you make it, the more likely the adoption will occur.
Exactly, right, exactly. And then, by making sure that we have sort of open source code and this notion of extensions, which is sort of like webhooks for Web3, right? Then we can begin to interface usefully with third-party developers, enable a whole bunch of value for them leveraging our protocols such that it becomes really, really easy to build mobile-first decentralized applications. What was the third?
So the businesses to accept payment.
Yes, right. So of course, conversational commerce and really sort of being able to tap into these, even the informal business supply chain. It's around $45 billion per year that goes through that, right? So you can imagine that through the combination of technologies, right, where you have Whisper that provides this provably dark end-to-end encrypted messaging protocol, and then in combination with a sort of global, auditable, public, decentralized ledger, right? You can find who you want to, speak how you want to with them, enter into the deals that you want, and then have those deals recorded in a public and immutable and auditable way.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the combination of the technologies that enables enterprise use cases that I think we've just begun to imagine.
Yeah, that really speaks to ChronoLogic because we're very interested in confidential scheduling, and so we haven't implemented that yet. But so you were saying the two different sides, the confidential and the public, and so right now we're doing the Ethereum alarm clock. It's on chain, it's public, and that has so many advantages. But we're also exploring confidential scheduling.
Yes.
We talked earlier about the Ethereum alarm clock. Can you tell me your thoughts about it?
So look, I mean, the beauty of this stuff, right, and it applies specifically to the Ethereum alarm clock, is that you build a smart contract that you have a specific use case in mind, right? And then it turns out that all of a sudden this fulfills the needs of like 100 other projects that can leverage your open data, right? So it's this idea of fat protocols, right? You build something that you specifically require, but because you do so on a public global computational substrate that everybody's using, right? It's the first world computer. All of a sudden you figure out like, hey, actually we need the Ethereum alarm clock to make sure that like scheduling of like location data that's coming into Status is correct, right? Or that the oracles that we're using for transactional information and the sort of forex, right? Like the forex rates are correct, right? And like there's all sorts of use cases that suddenly end up popping out when you have like open data and fat protocols, and they're just these thin apps living on top that are leveraging like the same fundamental computational resources beneath. The possibilities for interoperability again like are really just beginning to be imagined.
Yeah, this is a complex ecosystem, and so we all find our own role that we can leverage our unique value proposition.
Yeah, without a doubt, right? I mean, like, it just, again, like the combinatorial explosion of innovation is really something it's difficult to wrap your mind around, right? So I was talking to someone a little bit earlier. There's, ERC20 was the first token standard that's implemented. It's really got, I don't know, billions of dollars of value behind it. And now we're seeing ERC 721, which is this non-fungible token standard, and all sorts of art and games are like looking to sort of leverage it. This guy was talking to me about, he was like, hey, so what happens if we take an ERC20 token and make it the owner of an ERC 721 token, and then you have this like refungible token, and like, whether that's actually going to be implementable is not the point that I'm trying to make. It's really just like you
can play with the tools.
The ways that you can combine these things are literally endless, right? And it's because we're now sort of all fundamentally sharing the same commons that is incentivized and secured by cryptography, right? And like, man, I can barely begin to imagine what the world's going to look like sort of 10 or 20 years from now.
Absolutely. So where can people go to learn more and contribute to Status?
So, I mean, status.im is the website where you can find, but like specifically in terms of contributing, I think I'd direct people to openbounty.status.im. We were really struggling to find talented developers that actually know what they're doing with blockchains. I think this is a problem across the space. And all of the sort of like conferences and events and meetups that we were going to, we found like a lot of talented devs there who were saying, hey, I'm really interested in this, but I have a job and a family that I have to support, and I need a stable and secure income, but I want to try and experiment with crypto. And so what we've done is we built a very simple sort of GitHub app that you can add to any repo in the world, assign a bounty label, and like this app will go in, it will deploy a contract on Ethereum, you can fund that contract, and then if anybody in the world submits a pull request to fix it, they'll automatically get those funds. So it's a way of incentivizing open source development using Ethereum. If you want to contribute to Status, openbounty.status.im is the place to go.
Perfect. Thank you so much for talking to us, and thank you for being a speaker at EdCon.
Cool, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure, man. I really appreciate the opportunity.